Hey, everybody, welcome back to Odd and Untold. We're doing another episode of Odd News, and this one has been making the rounds in the past 24 hours. It's called the Calvine UFO photo, and this was taken in Scotland back in 1990. And the photos, I guess there were six of them, they were just released, and it seems to show a diamond or saucer-shaped craft being circled by what appears to be a military jet. Some people have said it's a tornado. Other people say it looks like a Harrier. Uh, it could be a Phantom. It's hard to tell what jet that is, but it definitely looks military. So researcher David Clark, I'm going to go to his article, revealed after 32 years a top secret picture one Ministry of Defense insider calls the most spectacular UFO photo ever captured. So why do officials want to keep the identities of the men who took it secret for another 50 years? Good question. So I'll just read a little bit from this article, just so you guys can get a little background. On August 4th, 1990, two young men were working as chefs in a hotel in Pitlochry. I hope I'm saying that right. A beautiful Highland Perthshire town just outside of the Cairngorms National Park in Scotland. At 9 p.m., after a long day in a hot kitchen, they drove about 13 miles north along the A9 to Calvine, a spot on the edge of the Cairngorms, for a walk in the hills. They hadn't gone far when they saw a huge, solid, diamond-shaped object about 100 feet long hovering silently in the sky above them. Terrified, they hid in some bushes and looked up. Minutes later, they heard the scream of a jet aircraft going north. In 1990, the Royal Air Force Leuchars in Fife had two squadrons of Tornado fighters on 24-hour standby to intercept Russian intruder aircraft. So, yeah, some people think it's a Tornado. It does look like a Harrier jump jet to me, the VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. So that's interesting. So the article continues. The jet came back and circled the thing before heading off on its original course as if the pilot had seen the object too and had come back for a closer look. So that's interesting to me because it tells me that the jets were not scrambled to go look at this object. They were just flying a normal routine mission and had seen it and maybe come around to take a closer look at it. So the article continues. Eventually, the two men stuck their camera out from where they were hiding and fired off 6 frames. At that point, the object shot vertically upwards and disappeared way, way up into the sky. Convinced they had just seen a UFO, they took their photos to the Daily Record, one of Scotland's leading newspapers. But no story was ever printed. The paper passed the pictures on to the Ministry of Defense. And then the photographs simply vanished, along with the two young chefs. So I guess the identities of these two guys or two people. So these two people, no one knows who they are. The photos have been missing for about 32 years. Now they've been released. So here for the first time, we can reveal that the missing picture, a photograph one Ministry of Defense insider described as the most spectacular UFO picture ever captured and the holy grail in terms of hard evidence that these things really exist. So it says... The ministry has not released the original photo and wants the names of the witnesses sealed for a further 54 years until 2076 because of privacy concerns. So I do think it'll be interesting to see if these two men come forward and admit that they're the ones who took the photo. I don't know if they will. I don't know how they're going to be able to prove it. The Ministry of Defense will have to release those names at some point, hopefully before 54 years is up. So David Clark continues, as a university lecturer and investigative reporter who spent 3 decades immersed in the world of ufology, I heard the story of the mysterious Calvine file as the missing photo and report of the incident in Calvine came to be known many moons ago and have devoted the past 13 years doggedly searching for the images the men took. So yeah, these photos had disappeared. David Clark recently spoke to retired Royal Air Force officer Craig Lindsay, and he was the first one to speak to one of the young chefs that night. Sorry. So David Clark continues, so what do I make of it? The moment Craig showed the photograph to me, I knew I was looking at something exceptional. Yes, it's a black and white image printed on color paper, and the trees and fences look a little blurry as if the photographer took it in a moment of panic, which is consistent with their story. But the camera is focused on the weird diamond-shaped object in the center of the frame. Unlike many other UFO images, this is clearly a structured craft of unknown origin. It looks otherworldly and unlike any conventional aircraft. It is by far the best UFO photograph I've ever seen. So I'm going to bring the photo up again just so you guys can see. You can see the fence down here that he's talking about and some trees. The plane itself is a little blurry. I mean, even the diamond object is blurry, but you can tell that the photographer, the chef, was focused on this object. I've heard some people say it's a kite that's just on its side. That to me doesn't seem right. I mean, it could be. I don't know if they would take 6 photos of it. I don't know if they'd bring it to a newspaper. They're saying this thing was about 100 feet long. Obviously, perspective is lost here. I mean, this plane could be very far away. It could be very close to the object. So it's hard to say. It could just be incidental. It could just be a plane flying in the background. Of course, there's always the possibility that this is a hoax. It was 1990. People could hoax things. Computers did exist. Very primitive compared to today's standards, but computers did exist. It's a black and white photo. It's grainy. It's an interesting photo. I don't agree that it's the best photo of UFO ever. I think that's going to be with most paranormal things, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts. Anybody who captures something is going to say, this is the best photo ever. And ironically, sometimes the better the photo is, the more fake it looks. And that's kind of the conundrum that we face when we're investigating this, because something can look really great and it could be absolutely convincing, but then it's like, is that too good to be true? So I'm wondering about this photo. So I'm going to go back to the article and just see what else it says here. So David Clark says, I've since had it analyzed by Andrew Robinson, a senior lecturer in photography at Sheffield Hallam University. He is convinced it is genuine, and if it is a hoax, then a highly elaborate one involving expensive, sophisticated equipment and flying models not at the disposal of 2 jobbing hotel chefs. He told me, my conclusion is that the object is definitely in front of the camera. That is, it's not a fake produced in post-production, and its placement within the scene appears to be approximately halfway between the foreground fence and the plane in the background. Again, I'm not a photography expert, but just looking at this, it's hard to say. That there's not a lot of information in this photo. There's a fence, there's a plane, there's a UFO. It's unidentified. It easily could have been something tossed up into the air and photographed at the right moment. That's been done before with hubcaps and frisbees and pie tins and tons of hoaxes. It's interesting that the Ministry of Defense has held on to this for so long and that they refuse to release the names of the chefs. But again, I don't think it makes this necessarily real. It's interesting. Again, I just don't know how anyone can look at this and say it's definitively between the fence and the plane. There's just not enough information in this photo, unless there's other photos that they're looking at that I don't have access to. So I think that's the bulk of the main information here. You have people looking at it who are saying it's real. I know Nick Pope had heard about this, and he was investigating it for years because the photos simply were not available. So you hear this story about this wonderful photo, this great photo, and no one's seeing them. So it sort of builds its own legend. It becomes an urban legend. It becomes a myth. Takes on that mythological status that there's this great photo out there. And I've seen other photos out there from the series, a few, not all of them. This seems to be the best one. Again, it's hard to even tell what make and model plane that is. It's hard to tell how close it is to the UFO. It's hard to tell where the UFO is in relation to the fence. This is a very sort of one-dimensional image. It's grainy. It's black and white. There's nothing else in the photo that really helps with a sense of perspective. You can tell the plane is far away just because we know planes are large, and these guys were close to the fence, and that's about it. So we can tell that much, but this object here, hard to say what it is. So I'm very curious about this, very intrigued. I'm going to follow this story. Want to know what you guys think. So leave some comments down below. Tell me what you think. Is this a real UFO? Is this the best photo of UFO ever taken? Is this a hoax? Or is this a misidentification? Is this just a kite? Is this a military aircraft that was being tested and just at a weird angle? I'd like to know your thoughts, so please leave them below in the comments. And stay tuned for more odd news and another podcast episode next week. Thanks, everybody.